Last night's a global outage of Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp and Instagram had us all using old-fashioned text messages or even shock horror, making an actual phone call. It certainly hammered home just how reliant we are on social media platforms to communicate and connect. And that is sobering knowledge in the light of revelations that Facebook has apparently known for years just how damaging its social media platforms are, particularly for teenage girls. This after a former Facebook manager released documents to the US media showing that the company knew just how dangerous its platforms are. Let's discuss this now with Emma Sadlier of the digital law company. Emma, of course, is passionate about educating children and their parents about staying safe in the digital world. Emma, always fantastic to talk to you. You know, this interview comes at a fascinating time because right now this Facebook whistleblower, Frances Haugen, is in fact appearing at a US Senate hearing, and what she's saying is fascinating, but she's already revealed that the company knew the damage it was doing, and this is just one example, 17% of teen girls with an eating disorder say that Instagram makes their eating disorders worse. You know, experts have been saying for years that there are real concerns about platforms such as Instagram. But listening to what she's had to say, what are you finding the most fascinating?
Yeah, I think that what we needed was somebody from the inside coming out to tell us exactly what is going on. Because every person who spends any amount of time looking at what social media, but in particular the behemoth that Facebook has become, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, is doing to teenagers, particularly teenage girls, knows just how concerning the use of those platforms is. And I think that everybody got a fright last night because suddenly for 6 hours, we weren't able to use Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram. And suddenly I think people realized how reliant we've become on it. And also that we're dealing with one company, with one monopoly. And there have been whispers within the new administration in America that they're going to force Facebook to unbundle, that they're going to force Facebook to sell off Instagram, to sell off WhatsApp, because they've got too big. But I think that this idea that it's really something that they've been talking about inside the company for a long time, I mean, like almost a decade, that they know that they're doing, not just not doing good, but they're actually doing harm to their users, especially their younger users, and that they really care a lot more about their profits than about their users. I've been saying for a long time that this company is doing a lot of evil stuff. And I think this idea that they know they've been doing this evil stuff and they've been doing absolutely nothing to fix it should alarm all of us.
Yeah. What is it about Instagram specifically that makes it so psychologically toxic for teens? Just explain how it works and how the algorithm works as well.
So I think that is the key point, Sally, is that we're dealing with an algorithm. And Facebook knows that there are problems with its algorithm, but they know that fixing those problems means that people will spend less time on the platform. So let's talk about the algorithm. Facebook's algorithm says this: I open my Facebook, I open my Instagram, and Facebook, the company, will tell me what to see, right? And what they've worked out, Facebook's own research has worked out, that the angrier this content makes me, the more likely I'm going to engage with that content, and therefore the longer I'm going to spend on these platforms. Now, the longer I spend on the platforms, the richer these companies get, right? Facebook is worth over 1.2 trillion US dollars. This is a company that gives us their service for free. How do they make money? They make money out of advertising. Why do they make a lot of money out of advertising? Because they know everything there is to know about us, and we are all completely addicted. And that's one of the key reasons this whistleblower is speaking out. We're addicted to the platforms. So I look at this content, and what they're showing us is that the more divisive, the more polarizing that content is. It's disinformation, it's hate speech, it's violent content. It's the kind of stuff we saw in Myanmar, the ethnic cleansing. Basically, if they're showing us sweet la-di-da stuff, we're going to open our Facebook, we're going to open our Instagram, and we're going to carry on with our day doing something else. But the more polarizing the content that they show us, The more likely we are to be angry about it, the more likely we are to be angry, the more likely we are to engage with that content. So that's kind of where we are. And what they're showing us is that the negative impact on their users is immense, especially their teenage users and their young teenage girl users. And one of the things that a senator did, and as you know, Frances Haugen is being questioned by the Senate committee at the moment, one of the senators created a fake Instagram account of a 13-year-old girl who pretended to be, because this person was fictional, interested in eating disorder content. And what the algorithm started showing her immediately was every kind of account related to eating disorders, encouragement to anorexia. That kind of content was what this fake account was being exposed to. So it almost becomes a feedback loop. You know, they show you what you want to see. If you're an anti-vaxxer, for example, the content you see will become an echo chamber. Because, and then particularly with the teenage girls, what happens is that the more time they spend on these platforms, the more depressed they become. The more depressed they become, the more time they spend on these platforms. So we're doing immense harm to the youth, particularly to the girls. And somebody from Facebook came out and said, well, it's the same thing that glossy magazines have been doing for years. But it's not, because glossy magazines weren't addictive. These platforms that these kids are being shown, are put in their hands, is completely addictive content. And I have to tell you, we're seeing it on the ground. I'm seeing worse bullying now, Sally, than I've ever seen in my practice. Every day I'm more horrified, particularly at the bullying content, the self-harming content, you know, the idea that whatever these kids are into, these platforms online are going to make those interests more extreme and cause them greater harm.
And also this whole issue, you know, what you don't have with an old-fashioned magazine is the likes. And, you know, if you don't get the feedback of people saying you look lovely, lovely, you start feeling that you've got to do more and more. I mean, there's so much to unpack here. But I want to ask two questions in one, because I've been told I'm only allowed one last question, so I'm being a little sneaky. Sorry, Aisha. But basically, if you listen to what Frances Haugen said, I'm here today, she says to the Senate, because I believe Facebook products harm children, stoke division, weaken our democracy. The company leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer, but won't make the necessary changes because they've put their astronomical profits above people. Congressional action is needed. They won't solve this crisis without your help, which alludes to what you were talking about earlier, that this needs to be regulated and broken up and very clearly controlled. However, what does the average parent of a teenager do besides barge into their room right now and throw their cell phone away? What do we as parents do?
So I think that the best line of defense is an active, involved, engaged, and aware parent. You know, how many parents come to me and say they'll never understand Snapchat or TikTok or Instagram or what their child is doing, staring at their device for 8 hours a day, so we're just not going to get involved. And I think those days are gone. You've got to hold your child's hand through this digital world. Educate them, make sure what the issues are, keep a close eye on your child. There are incredible apps. There's one that's about to be launched in South Africa. It's called Bark. And for me, it's the Big Daddy. It's an excellent, excellent one. But basically, it allows you not to go and monitor every single thing that's going on a child's phone, but to flag scary content. And by scary content, I mean the suicidal ideation, the bullying, the racism, the hate speech, the self-harming, the cutting is a big issue that I'm seeing with kids finding their tribes online. So getting involved, educating yourself, and a great resource is also Common Sense Media. It's a free online website. It gives you step-by-step instructions on how to deal with each of the apps your children may be using. You've got to get involved. You've got to actually be the parent in the situation and don't let your children loose on their own devices, quite literally.
Yeah, absolutely. Such sage and important advice, as always. Thank you so much for chatting to us this evening. That is social media law specialist Emma Sadlier.